Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first part of what will hopefully be a several-part lore kind of background series for the game Hunt Showdown. So I recently got into playing Hunt Showdown. I managed to kind of work my way up to level 73 here, and so I have some experience in the game. But this is more about the lore and the guns and kind of the maybe the story behind Hunt Showdown. Um, I typically don't make YouTube videos, as you can see, and I was looking around for lore videos and stuff. I'd want to know more about the background of this game, and there really isn't that much out there. And a lot of stuff that is out there is quite old, 2 years old, and this game has been updated quite a bit since then. So I figured, well, I guess I can give it a shot myself, and hopefully a couple people who are like-minded, interested in these sort of things as I am, um, will benefit from these. So um, I was going to start with the guns. I myself am something of a gun person, and so the guns in the game really interest me. This is a time period not often seen in really any game, and the focus on weaponry due to it being a first-person shooter is something that is very interesting and largely unseen. So I was going to start with what is the first gun on the store page. It is not the first gun you start with, as a matter of fact. The Nagant 1895 here, as well as the Winfield or Winchester 1873C are your first two guns that you start with. But the Springfield is one of the very early guns you get to, and one of the more, well, really most of the guns in this are pretty interesting, but certainly a more obscure gun than some of the other ones. So the Springfield 1866, we can take the 3D view here, is a gun that was produced off of the original Springfield 1861 rifled musket. So what does that mean? All right, so this is a trapdoor designed rifle, and that was produced off of the gun that was used by both Union and Confederate forces in the Civil War, primarily by the Union forces. The model 1861 Springfield was a muzzle loading musket that was used in all those line battles from all those different battles in the Civil War. So we see a gun that originally would have been loaded from the breech, from the muzzle, which is right here. And you would pull your powder down all the way, and then you'd seat your ball and push it all the way down. You would there'd be a little cap right here. You'd throw a cap on it, and then you would pull your trigger, your hand would go down, and that's how you fire your gun. A lengthy process to load, it takes a good 20-30 seconds to load it up if you were good, maybe a little bit less if you're pretty good, and but certainly a lengthy process. And now the Civil War was over in 1866, and the American government realized that these 1861 muskets were fairly, they were good, well, accurate muskets. They were not anywhere near up to date, up to what the military needed at that time. Other countries were getting into cartridge guns, guns that would shoot a metallic cartridge or be inserted a metallic cartridge like this right here, and then would shoot the bullet out of the end. And they would be loaded from the breech, and the breech is the end of the gun right here, or the end of the barrel right here. So they needed something that was a breech loader, but they were out of money. They just spent a whole bunch of money in the Civil War. So what do? Well, you convert your old 1861 muskets into breech loading rifles. So what they did is they basically chopped off the end here, chopped off this top part of the end here, inserted in this device right here, which is a trapdoor. This lever right here, you pull up on it, this swings open, and you can see down the barrel, and you can insert your round into the barrel here, and close this trapdoor on it, and then all you have to do is pull back this hammer and pull your trigger. A far simpler and a far quicker process than what was before loading two different things down the barrel and then putting a cap on and then pulling back your hammer. So this increased the fire rate of American troops by quite a bit. And of course, after the Civil War, we get immediately into the westward expansion again. So we're fighting the Native Americans quite a bit over in the western states, in places like Arizona, or even California, New Mexico, Colorado, those sorts of places where there's the Native Americans are, of course, not wanting to be pushed out of their land, but the American forces are moving in, and American government troops are fighting the Native Americans. So this gave us, the American forces, quite an advantage, being able to shoot far faster than we would have been able to with the muskets. So this conversion, like I said, was made in 1866. That's why it's called the Springfield Model 1866. And it was used for about 7 years. And there was several variations. In 1868, they kind of had an upgrade to it, as well as in 1870. Just various things were changed and upgraded on it, but this one is the 1866 that we see in the game here. And the gun itself shot a 50-70 caliber centerfire cartridge, as it says in the game. And it says it's known for its quick rate of fire. That's, compared to things like the Winfield we have in the game, that's not really true. As far as in this game, it's probably one of the slowest firing guns in the game. But definitely, like what's referencing is the fact that it's a far quicker firing gun than something like the 1861 Springfield that it was made out of. The other way that they converted is the 1861 Springfield was originally a 58 caliber gun. So what they actually did is they would take they would bore out the barrel, which would mean they basically just kind of drilled out the barrel, and then they inserted a sleeve at 50 caliber, a 50 caliber sleeve into the barrel. So these barrels were both sleeved and they cut up on the top in order to convert them. Later on in 1868, they actually just started making their own production barrels for it, and so that was one of the changes that they made moving onwards when they started to make this into a full production gun and not just a conversion. But many of the parts were surplus, so it was a far cheaper gun to make than making a whole new thing. In 1873, they came up with the 1873 Trapdoor, which served the United States until the Craig Jorgensen came into service in the late 1890s. And it was very similar to this gun, but it was purpose-built as a trapdoor gun, not a conversion. And there was both carbine versions as well as long rifles like this. In the game, we also see a marksman model here. The marksman model is very interesting. It's actually very well modeled. As you can see, the scope is kind of oddly offset here. This is for two reasons. I mean, one, you sometimes see offset scopes in order to allow them to use the original rear sights that were on this gun. But really, the real reason it's offset like this is because this trapdoor flips open all the way up here, so you would have to have your scope mount starting here, which is far too far away for you to be usable, especially at this time where you would have to put your eye very close up to that scope in order to use it properly. You couldn't see it from far away if you had mounted the scope up here. So this is actually a really well modeled, nice little thing that they did by putting the scope where it is here. Definitely shows the attention to detail that they were going for. As far as the scope and the mount itself, I can't speak to it too much. I've never seen anything like this. Presumably the scope itself looks correct, and the mounting does as well. Another interesting part about the game, if you're new to it or just don't know, these old scopes are extremely fragile, and so you would never want to melee someone with a gun that has a scope on it. Not only could it break the scope, but it would actually knock it off centers, so we wouldn't shoot accurately anymore. And the game replicates that. Your scope will break occasionally if you use this gun with a scope mounted on it to melee. We also see a couple different bullets for the Springfield here. We see both this dum-dum ammo and this explosive ammo, and there's other guns in the game that have these same types of ammo. The dum-dum ammo is something that was never really a real thing. It's sort of like a hollow point round, if you know what a hollow point round is, before hollow points were a thing. But what the idea is they would actually cut open the jacketing, the copper jacketing on the rounds, in order to expose the leads inside so that the round would expand upon hitting a target and cause more damage. In the game, it causes severe bleeding on impact instead of causing more damage, but the result is more or less the same. Unfortunately, for real life, the dum-dum bullets actual usefulness seems to be negligible or very little impact compared to just a normal bullet. The other thing you have to remember is these are 50-70 caliber rounds, which in the game you're fighting some pretty large monsters, so that's a fairly small round for some of the monsters. But fighting other humans, a 50-70 caliber round is quite a large round to take. So they did plenty of damage without being changed in dum-dum ammo. And the dum-dum ammo was never something a government made, so it would be a person themselves actually cutting open their bullets. Like I said, the effect of that would have been questionable at best, I guess. The other thing we see is explosive ammo. I could find no reference to a explosive 1866 50-70 cartridge. I presume there never was one. 50-70 cartridge is really only created for this Springfield 1866, and like I said, it was only in service for 7 years. So the amount of ammunition and time put into production for different types of ammunition, there wasn't really any. So I doubt this was ever a thing, but certainly interesting addition to the game. In addition to that, we see these compact ones with all different types of things going on. None of these, of course, ever existed um, in any military capacity. I mean, there's a possibility many of these after the 1873 Trapdoor started coming out got surplus to the civilian market because the 1873 Trapdoor, when it came out, was in a new cartridge, a 4570 cartridge. So basically, the military got rid of all of these 1866s because they were all useless because they were using a different type of ammunition than the new ones. And so a lot of these went to the civilian market. That's why you see them in the game, I'm sure, because basically civilian market got all of these. And so you would definitely maybe see civilians cutting down guns like this to kind of have like an Azobrez style thing. But I can't find much reference to it. But certainly it's an interesting addition to the game. Um, but yeah, I don't think that these were really ever a real thing in real life in anything other than maybe one or two people who decided to cut them down. Cutting down something like this is it's a really bad idea. The uh, the recoil from something like this on such a small platform is going to be horrendous. It's going to be terrible, and I would not want to shoot it. But people cut down Mosin Nagants, and that recoils just as bad. And so I think definitely a possibility here. Yeah, so that's the 1866 Springfield. A little bit of background on what it is, and the history behind it, and how it came to be, as well as kind of a little bit about the gun before that and after it. It's a really cool addition to the game, something a little bit unique and different, something I certainly didn't expect to see in the game. And so I hope you guys appreciated and liked the video and the content. Any opinions or things I could do better would be greatly appreciated in the comments, and you all have a good day.